Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. Hello there, it's Brad. The Empowerography Live Conference 2026 is happening live and in person for the first time here in Toronto in April of 2026. This is your chance to step fully into your power over 2.5 incredible days. You'll hear from 30 plus inspiring speakers, join hands-on workshops, and connect with women from around the world who are ready to grow, learn, and rise together. This isn't just an event. This is an experience that will leave you motivated, empowered, and ready to take action. Seats are limited, so head to my website and secure your spot today. All the information will be in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you in April. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest is Jodi Scott. Jody is the founder of Spry Life. She has a master's degree in health psychology and specializes in the field of, now bear with me here, I got to say this slow, psychoneuroimmunology. There we go. I got it out.
Love it.
Mouthful to say. Welcome, Jody. How are you today?
Lovely. It is great to be here with you, Brad. Thank you.
Yes, we have been waiting, working on getting this done. I've canceled a couple times, so we are finally here. What is it? Maybe a year later after we first met and connected. I am excited and happy and honored to have you here today. Thank you so much for being here with me, for taking and making the time. I am excited to jump in and share a little bit about your story, your journey, and of course, the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do. So with that being said, let's do this. Let's get this party started.
Right where we're supposed to be.
Yes. Aside from that mouthful of a word that I'm going to have to say again, that is one hell of an impressive resume. And I guess the first question I want to ask you would be, can you explain to our listeners what psychoneuroimmunology is all about and how it relates to overall health and well-being?
Well, psychoneuroimmunology, you're getting it. It's good. And, the acronym they use a lot now is PNI, so that makes it a lot easier than having to say the entire word.
To challenge myself, though, so I'm going to challenge myself.
Good. That's good. It's good to challenge ourselves. Psychoneuroimmunology is just a fascinating area of research. So when I got my master's in health psychology, I was training the resident physicians on the bio-psychosocial model. And what that was, having the physicians not just prescribe a medication, but look at the patient as a whole person. What is their community? What is their culture? What are they doing every day to help either remove some of those challenges or insert new habits that could help them along with the prescription or the prognosis to have a better wellness journey? And so during that process, what I discovered was psychoneuroimmunology and this incredible relationship that essentially is your mind, body, immune system. So it is your psychology, it is your nervous system, and it is your immune system, and how they all integrate to impact your health. And so in a nutshell, it's your emotions and your perspective and stress, and can have a physical impact on your wellness. So as simple as when you stress, you can get sick. When you feel joy, you can boost your immune system. And so looking at this from this integrative standpoint of what can I be doing to be more a part of this wellness journey with my mind, different practices, and your immune system. And there's some fun hacks that you can do when you distill it down. And what I loved at this time in research was we were at this really interesting intersection of where we isolated your physical health and your mental health. And all of a sudden, we're bringing science to human potential and saying that there might be more here. And so that really caught my attention, and hence my passion and leaning in there.
I love that. And I love that we're going there with this conversation because it's so important. And there's so many people out there that have no idea. And we don't know what we don't know. And it's not through any fault of our own. It's through what we've been taught and conditioned to believe and so on and so forth. But the emotions play such a huge part because those emotions, whether they be traumatic or whatever it is, tamped down, they manifest in dis-ease. They cause you problems. That's what dis-ease is. It's suppressed emotions.
Absolutely. And when you can start to identify your relationship with your emotions and how you can interface with them to have a positive wellness journey, all of a sudden you've untapped this whole human potential that you didn't even know was possible, and you just feel better. And you'll catch yourself. A perfect example, right before we got on this call, I was like, go. And I thought, I need to stop and get grounded because I can feel those neurotransmitters, that flood of the stress hormones coming in. And what that does is it interferes with clarity. It interferes with your emotional grounding for you to be able to make decisions. And yeah, it can make things a lot more fun when you're more aware of that process.
That's the piece, is the self-awareness. And that takes practice, that takes work to get to that point, to raise your self-awareness.
It does. And it's so interesting too, because it's not something you just tackle and then you're done for the rest of your life. It is literally a practice that you integrate every day, all day. And then you see the compounding exponential effect of it. And I'll tell my daughter, for example, it's time to add to the sleep bank because we've had 5 days of not having good sleep. And eventually you're going to start seeing that show up in your mood, in your physical wellness. And so you can push yourself when you have been making good decisions because you have a little bit of reserve, but you got to make sure that you come back and add to that reserve to serve you in some of those more challenging moments.
For sure. You mentioned that there's a couple of very simple hacks that you could implement. Can you share one or two of them?
Absolutely. So it was interesting as I was going through this, I just assumed, you have to meditate for 2 hours every day. And that's the only way you're going to be able to tap into this like human potential of being more in alignment with your P&I, if you will. And the science is really compelling in terms of you really only need to do 30-second to 2-minute exercises throughout the day to have that same measurable impact. And they've seen this where brain scans are being impacted by this, genetic marker changes, and then obviously hormone and neurotransmitter changes. And so some of those are as simple as journaling. And we hear about this. Okay. They did a study where people who are suffering from eczema did simple journaling, and they actually saw the immune response go down and then the flare-ups in their skin improve just by doing that throughout the day.
Wow.
And so for me, I do a lot of journaling. I like to do what I call 30-second to 2-minute present exercises. And they could be feel your feet on the ground and just feel your feet on the ground. And every time a flooding thought comes in, look at your toes, feel your feet on the ground. You can do the same thing with touching your fingertips. Look at the horizon and just really focus on the horizon or the clouds or something in front of you where you bring in your eyes and you focus in on it. Focus on the loudest noise you hear, then you do the noise that you hear closest. And if you just do that for 30 seconds, these little exercises, of course, you can do some deep breathing. Just stop and feel your breath and do that for 30 seconds. Afterwards, you're like, I feel noticeably different. And it's pretty cool that you get that immediate gratification. And what you'll find is if you do that throughout the day in various moments, it's like what I call going to the workout, like your mental workout, just like going to the gym and working out those muscles. You're working out that relationship between your mind and body and building up that muscle to have more control, more demand. So that if you are in a fight or flight situation or in a very, call it in the boardroom, a very difficult situation, you can bring yourself back to grounding, get that clarity, and make better decisions. And I think it really challenges sort of this like leadership, or call it parenting even, or partnership, whatever kind of triggers you, this notion that you need to be in this like flooding state of fight or flight. I was in that state of mind for the first 10 years of building my business. And I thought, that's success. That's just grit. You just keep going. And it's been really interesting to transition and go, no, it is not. It is stop. It is get present. Let's get in alignment with our nervous system and these thoughts. And all of a sudden, you can make better decisions. Like things come to you because you've got all this education and experience. And all of a sudden, you can tap into it in a way and implement it in a way that is far more productive.
I love that you share that, because I think that we are seeing a lot more people awakening to the fact that, no, this hustle and this keep going and this pushing is bullshit. It doesn't help. It's making things worse. And it's about sitting with ourselves and being in the present moment, because really, when you think about it, the present moment is all we have. The past is gone. It's there. You cannot change it. All you can do with the past is take the lessons from the situations, carry them forward to do better, to do things differently. And the future, we're stressing about the future. It's not even fucking here yet. So live and be in the present, get quiet with yourself, tune into what your body is saying to you. The body never lies. The body knows. So we are seeing a lot more of that. And I think the more conversations like this that you and I are having right now, the more of these conversations that are happening, the better it is, because we can educate and help people to know what is available to them and how to deal with these things when they do come up. It's so important to have these conversations.
So true. And what's been so interesting in learning this journey is neurons mirror neurons. So when you are practicing this, there's sort of this halo effect that happens with the people around you. It lifts them up and they start like integrating those practices. And I picked up my daughter from school yesterday. She goes, Mom, I had the most interesting conversation with my teacher after class. And I said, what was that? And my teacher said, I really like how you take tests. And my daughter goes, what is that supposed to mean? And the teacher goes, you get very present and very focused. And you go through the test and you focus on the questions that you know, and you get those done. And then you come back and you look at the ones that you're being challenged by. And I see how you leverage what you did know to help you process what you didn't know. And you're just so focused and present. And she goes, I didn't even realize I was doing that, Mom. And I've been sharing with her the various presence exercises, and I'll watch her take a deep breath before she goes into an exam, or rub her fingertips together. And I'm like, wow, just by me modeling this behavior, this is really cool to see her integrate it. And my goodness, why wait till we're 50 to figure this out, right?
Exactly.
If I can teach a 4-year-old how to really appreciate the present, which is going to help her navigate more challenging moments, she's just going to live a healthier and happier life.
It's incredible. The impact that has is phenomenal, and it ripples out. It's incredible and so powerful. And so what inspired you to pursue this path?
Honestly, I was pre-med, and very specifically, I had this experience where I got special permission to take double the workload at school. I'm working 2 jobs, and they would joke around that I was a bee in a past life. I'm just like hammering. And I got really sick, and I could not kick this cold that ultimately turned in sort of like walking pneumonia. And they were like, you're going to have to leave for this semester. You are not recovering. And something in me said, I am going to just stop everything. I am going to go to my room, and I'm going to turn the lights out, and I am going to just rest. I'm going to give my body everything it needs to recover. And I just sat there for almost 2 days in a very sort of meditative state. And I could feel myself starting to get better and wanting to get back to school. I'm like, nope, you're just going to stay here. Stay right here. And I came out of that after 2 days and was like, I did it. Like, I intentionally got in touch with my body and stopped everything. And I'm on the road to recovery now. Now I need to take it slow and not just jump straight back into it. But it really, for me, opened up the door as I'm taking all of these classes and I'm seeing this untapped potential I'm taking psychology and biology classes and that relationship, and then experiencing that anecdotal experience myself. And so that's when I just got heavy into the research. And I was like, there is this intersection of science and what is possible that we have not touched on. And we had so much of the data at the time was they were separate entities. And now you see this holistic interaction. And today, I think, fast forward, this integrative, holistic medicine approach is less, call it woo. And there's enough data now to support with the technology we have today, like we were saying, like genetic markers changing, brain scans changing, and looking at and seeing that it's real. And it's been fun to see even like journals of like behavioral medicine and dermatology joining forces to show that it's real. And of course, me being in Green Goo with skincare and seeing the relationship of the skin is not just your largest organ to protect the other organs. There's all these neurotransmitters that are in your skin, and how connected it is to your wellness and your longevity, as well as that mind-body relationship, has just been really fun.
It is really beautiful to see the realization, and again, using the word awakening, but that these two forms of healthcare, of medicine, can work together, and they work best together. Think of the benefits that will get that the patients will receive from the two of them coming together and working together. That is so powerful, because we cannot completely discount Western medicine. Of course,
no,
we need Western medicine, but I think that people are waking up and realizing that Eastern medicine and other modalities of healthcare have bigger benefits than a lot of the Western medicine that we have been conditioned and taught to believe is the only way that you can get better, when really I've heard people call it sick care. And of course, we can go down the rabbit hole of the whole pharmaceutical industry, and that's a whole other podcast. But it really is a beautiful connection to see the Eastern and Western medicine, for lack of better terms, coming together and working together, and the power in that. And in the end, it's about the service to the patients, to the clients, whatever you want to call them, and giving them the best possible outcomes and options.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to unpack there.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
100%. And I think this idea, the way that polarity sort of that you just described, is analogous to what we were saying in terms of mind or psychology versus medical care and Eastern Western medicine. They leverage each other, because then we can take the Western technology and those insights and be able to leverage, should we be doing more of this other practice because it's producing those results? And they work hand in hand together. And I'll say, from a Western medicine standpoint, when you think about even in P&I, when you distill it back and go, okay, so if you're able to bring joy, and joy affects your mood, which then impacts your immune system, you can work it the opposite way, which is these foods or these chemicals are interfering with my immune response, which then are impacting my mood. And so I can see how that isn't serving me. And so you can lead a life where you're like, maybe that chemical in that ingredient or that food or that lack of sleep is not serving me. So therefore, I'm going to do less of that, so that when you do have a major medical intervention, a doctor loves working on a healthy patient. Your outcome is much better. So when you can have this wellness journey that's more integrative on a daily basis, you're going to respond better to those medications when it comes time. Our DNA is what it is. We have a ton of genetic predispositions that we're going to be exposed to, especially, or even accidents. And Western medicine has done a phenomenal job of being able to help us with longevity. And then you can integrate that with other practices. And of course, I'm a huge fan of plant medicine for obvious reasons, but plant compounds are just as impactful as some of these meditation practices that we talk about. Plant compounds can emulate meditation, the same benefits of the meditation, that then help suppress these immune responses, increase serotonin, produce the telomerase, which is what's going to help with your telomeres, that helps with your DNA and longevity. And there's this beautiful, I call the entourage effect, bringing it all together to lift you up.
Yeah. We could go down a whole other rabbit hole with the whole food thing and that conversation. That's a whole other conversation as well. But I love when I get the opportunity to sit down and speak with women who are doing the work that you're doing, because again, it just goes back to people don't know what they don't know. So it's about educating them through these conversations. And I want to scream it from the fucking mountaintops when I get to speak to women like yourself, because people need to get educated, and people deserve this information. They deserve to know what's available to them, that we don't have to solely rely on the white coats for the information, that there are other things that you can look at to help get you healthy. Let's look at you holistically as a human being, as a person, instead of putting a fucking Band-Aid over a bullet hole or giving you a drug. And then guess what? You got side effects from that drug, so you need another pill to cover that up. And it's on and on. So I love speaking to women like yourself who are doing this work. It is such an important conversation to be having. So thank you for sharing that. And so you had mentioned research. So what are some of the key insights that you've gained through your research?
Oh my goodness. I think for me in general, and back to your point of educating, is how can I take what I've learned in the industry, in the field, in my education, and distill it down in a way that is manageable for the everyday human to integrate in their day-to-day. And I think if I can't have my daughter adopt these practices, then I haven't distilled it down enough. And so we use a term in the house called SHAMAN, and it's our acronym of, and it very much is an extension of PNI and these practices. And so S is sleep. And like I talked about earlier, making sure you're always adding to the sleep bank. And sleep doesn't have to be you are asleep. Sleep can very much be in a rested state of mind. H is hydration. We are 98% water. So when you think about how your psychology works with your immune system, works with your nervous system, water is the conduit in all of these existence, all of our organs. So being hydrated is important. And that brings me back to even skincare. There are things that people put on their body that pull the hydration out, or call it the soda that they're drinking that is not serving them. And so that little like awareness in your life can make a difference in your holistic journey. A is avoid. Avoid the things that don't serve you. This could be people. And it is okay to say no. You can just be like, you know what? This is not my tribe. This is not serving me. I am going to give myself the right to say no in this company. And it can be say no to this ingredient. It can say no to this, whatever, giving yourself the right and the ownership in doing that. And then M is mindfulness. Mindfulness, again, comes back to those little micro moments that you can have to get present and really get into that moment. And then A is antioxidants, and this is just the food component, because in order for that P&I to communicate well with each other, food matters. The nutrients that you're bringing in matter in order for our composition to work in the way that it does. And that brings me back to nutrition, which kind of segues into it, and just thinking about like how I can give that nutrition in my body so that I can, because when you don't eat well, you'll see your mood change. It obviously impacts your immune system, and it disrupts your ability to be present. So you'll find that when you are taking this holistic approach to yourself, you are in better, call it mind control. As I tell my daughter, we'll use like Star Wars analogies. So you can get your Jedi on.
Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah. And simple. I'm like, oh, he's not using the Force the right way over there. He's going to the dark side. And so you can have that Jedi capability on the day to day, and you just feel better.
Mindfulness, I've been saying this for a while now. I think that with the whole mindfulness thing, meditation, all of these things should be taught in school, in primary school. Kids should be learning this stuff and how important it is. Think of how well-rounded children would grow up to be as adults if they started learning this stuff early on in the school system. I mean, it should be taught. It should be mandatory. It should be brought into the school system. It's so necessary because that's where we start, is with our kids, as you're doing with your daughter. That's where we start. So it needs to be brought into the schools. It is so important.
I love that you're saying this because that is my next mission. So when
Beautiful.
we built our company, we sold it, we bought it back. Short version of the story is I had less than 24 hours to terminate my entire team, including my mom and sister who I built this company with. We were unemployed, we lost our purpose, and we were devastated. And here I've been just starting this journey of mindfulness and building this resilience and going, oh my gosh, like how do I get through this? And mind you, we're broke. So I can't just go to an acupuncturist or a massage therapist and that's what I love about this practice as well, is it's equitable. Mindfulness is free. We all have access to this. So going through this journey, what I recognize in terms of how this can serve you from a resilient standpoint, as I was sitting with my mom and sister, and I said, kids need to have these tools. They need to have them sooner. So my mom and I wrote some children's books, and my mom is
amazing.
Yeah, and she's illustrating them right now. So we'll be bringing them out because I was like, why wait until now? This could not be the hardest thing we've ever done. Like in this moment, yes, it was the hardest thing we'd experienced to date, but there could be harder days ahead. So it's like, what can we do to build those resources and that acumen to help us better weather it? Because to your point, the present is all we have, is this moment. And it was a full moon night too. And I was like, how many full moons does a human have? And I looked it up and I'm like, the average human only gets like 900 full moons in their lifetime, if they're lucky. Wow. And it just was like that gentle reminder of like how precious time is and how important it is to get present and move through these hard moments with a little bit more joy, a little bit easier on the body, and a little more clarity in terms of how to navigate.
We only get one shot at this thing called life, so you might as well make it the best fucking time you've got, because no one is promised tomorrow. We don't know how long we have. So live life to the fullest and live it. It's your birthright to live a life of fulfillment and joy. So do everything you can to ensure that you are experiencing that. And that's not to say that you're not going to go through hard shit. You're not going to go through struggles. We're human beings. Of course we are. Absolutely. But if you can arm yourself or equip yourself with the tools in your tool belt to help you deal with those situations easier when they come up, why the fuck not?
Yeah. And one of those other intentional exercises is looking at a challenge as an opportunity. There's actual data to show your physiology will change in favor of health, a healthier existence, when you look at a challenge as an opportunity. And it keeps you what I call above the line. And all of a sudden, instead of the world is happening to you, it's happening for you. And you're like, okay, give it to me. What can I learn from this? What opportunity is coming from this? And it's like the whole world opens up with new options. Even in, like they've been able to prove, even in death experiences, people who have terminal diagnoses, when they can approach this as a gift and opportunity, like their journey is so much fuller. And it's almost like they exit this world in a different way. And yeah, there's just so many special unlocks that you can have when you start this practice. And it's as simple as getting to know your mind-body relationship.
That mindset tweak is so huge. If you can just shift that little bit to say, it's happening for me. If you can bring yourself, have the awareness, first of all, to when something's happening or when something has happened, to step outside of it and look in from an outsider's point of view and say, okay, this happened. Why did this happen? Or what is the lesson in there for me? Because there is something for me to extract from this situation that is going to be helpful, and pull it out and use it to move forward. it fucking changes everything. And I'm not saying don't sit with it and let the feelings wash through you, let the experience sit with it, but don't dwell. Don't stay stuck there. Don't stay stuck in the muck. Look at it and pull the nugget. There is, I guarantee you, in every single situation, no matter how bad it may seem at the time, there is something in there for you to learn and to take out and use it to move forward. Guarantee you.
We have a saying, don't leave your hand on the hot stove for too long. You need to feel it because that heat is an important part of the experience. So whatever that painful thing is that you're feeling, feel it. Let it move through you. Have that reaction, but then don't stay in that place. And so when you think about moving your hand off the hot stove, you can shift through it. And another one is, what would your older self tell you in this moment? Because sometimes that imparts a little bit more wisdom of what you may be holding on to in that moment that you don't need to. And it gives you that extra perspective of just letting it go. And another one, if it's not about you, and let's say it's coming from someone else and that person is just like pushing you in the hardest way, it's hard to have empathy. And empathy is another mindset tool that does also boost your immune system. They say anger is one of the hard, anger is worse for you than anxiety. It's harder on your heart. And so some of these emotions in terms of not holding on to them. But empathy, look, when you see that person that's giving you the challenge, think of them as a child. Look at them as the 5-year-old version. Because we always give so much more grace for a little guy, right? And just see them in that place for a moment so that you can just bring that empathy forward. And then all of a sudden when you bring that empathy forward, it's again another one of those unlocks where you're like, okay, maybe I've got a different perspective. I may still need to avoid this person, and you have every right to, but perhaps there's a gift and opportunity now all of a sudden on how to navigate this confrontation that is really wearing on you. And you think about the workplace when you've got like a toxic peer in the workplace and how visceral that experience is. It makes you sick to your stomach every time you have that encounter with that person. And it's so hard. And so some of these tools can be really helpful in that setting as well.
Try and look at the situation through a lens of love, because love is the highest vibration, and think of what that does for your system, what that does for your body. A friend of mine was just saying to me earlier today is her mother always told her, when you encounter someone that's toxic or someone that's acting like an asshole or whatever, remind yourself that is someone's child. That is someone's son or daughter. So shift the perspective a little bit, give them a bit of grace, walk away from the situation. That can be grace too, right? So just shift that. It's these tiny little shifts in our belief system, in our mindset, that can change the trajectory for you of everything.
And it's not as overwhelming when you think of it and how you just framed it in these tiny little shifts. And instead of thinking like, I have to flip my entire life upside down and I have to do 100 things in the to-do list that is already so difficult, you can be washing your hands and just feeling the water on your hands and just like really being present with it so that these thoughts don't keep flooding in. And that takes 10 seconds. And then again, you're like, oh, there was a little bit of a reset there.
I love it. How does psychoneuroimmunology, there we go, challenge traditional views of the mind-body connection? And what implications does this have for our understanding of health and healing?
That's a big question. So in the general sense, it has just often been divided, that it is just two different sciences. And more of the data is confirming that it is a whole system. And I think this idea, and it's probably more a like ontology, like the vernacular, like humans oftentimes frame things by the words in which we give them or the words in which we are taught. And so I took a class on like the ontology of consciousness, and it was like, how do we put words around what is consciousness? And I very much feel that relationship in how we try to put our wellness journey into these various buckets. It's either Eastern medicine, Western medicine. It's either the mind or it's the body. And there's new data coming out that's interesting that there's this notion of the self, the spirit, that might actually make up a larger component, and the brain is just a very small amount and the body's just a very small amount. But how do we define this thing called consciousness, or the self, that may actually be 90+% of our whole wellness and existence? And the science will continue to go in that direction, to put words and vernacular around it. And all we can do is utilize the technology we have today for the genetic marker changes, the brain scan changes, the blood work that we do to see how it impacts it, until that science becomes more advanced and more advanced. And I think where we are today is we know it's just not woo, or we've at least been able to debunk that. Now it's just changing the language and getting more of the research and the funding to do it. When I did my health psychology master's program, I was the first health psychology master's program available in the state of Texas, where I got my degree.
Wow.
And it was interesting to see how now health psychology was so fun. I went to my well woman checkup, and I'm filling out the form, and I'm like, this is a dream, because all the questions they're asking now are what I was trying to integrate in this study, to say it isn't just, have you been feeling sick? Is your heart rate up? Are you having this symptom? Instead, it was like, are you having trouble paying your bills? How's your relationship with your partner? When asking some of these more social and emotional components that impact our wellness journey.
A friend of mine said to me a little while ago, science is just now starting to catch up with spirituality.
I love it.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
I'm listening to a book right now on basically quantum physics and wellness, and it's very interesting integrating that into some of these learnings.
What advice would you give individuals who are interested in optimizing their mind-body connection for better health and resilience? Where should they start?
I think you start simple, even as simple as the SHAMAN acronym in the day-to-day simple practices. There's a lot available now with us having podcasts and YouTube and literally audible books that you can bring into it. I don't like to overwhelm, though. I'm always like, just take these small practices, see how it feels, because you will feel different. And then you can start leaning in more in an area that serves you more, because everyone's a little different. And I think that's where we're going to go with this integrative, holistic, is that we're going to see that there's going to be more tailored medical interventions based on people's personalities and based on how they meet the world. Because journaling may not give the same reward or immune response as someone else who is meditating or doing gratitude practices. And we're all beautifully a little different. And find that thing that works for you and lean in more. And then there's a plethora of channels that you can go in and get that information.
YouTube University is always a great place.
University, yeah. Or as my daughter would say, TikTok. You'll love this yesterday. She goes, Mom, I was watching a TikTok and it said that when you sleep, you build up a dopamine bucket. Now, I have to tell you, she said dopamine bucket. And I was like, this is the most amazing conversation I'm having in my life. I'm like, I did something right. And so the bucket's really full. And so when you wake up and you start scrolling on your phone, your bucket of dopamine just goes away. And then you're tired for the rest of the day and you're sad and you'd have a hard time concentrating. So she's like, you know what I did today? I woke up and decided I'm not going to scroll on my phone. And I put it away and got ready. And she goes, and I have had a really good day. And I was like,
my dopamine bucket was full.
Yeah. And I was like, good job protecting your dopamine bucket, honey. And I was like,
I love that.
This is
that
amazing.
Is awesome. It is.
Yeah.
What are some common misconceptions about psychoneuroimmunology, and how do you address them in your work?
Yeah, I think it comes back to the fact that it just doesn't have the science, credibility, validation that we know today. And so it's just providing the data, showing the research. And I share more of that on a more frequent basis and bringing in the various journal reports so that people can feel confident in getting the information that they're getting. I was training resident physicians while doing the bio-psychosocial model, also how to discern the research, because research can skew in their favor. And especially, they'll be like, oh, this is the medication we're promoting today because they came in today and they showed us this data. I'm like, did you look at the clinical trial? How many people were actually in the clinical trial? And it was who funded the clinical trial? It was very clear that there was a way to skew that information. And that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But I think it's just really providing the data and then allowing yourself the anecdotal experience, because the proof is in the experience. It's as simple as my daughter saying, hey, I felt different all day. And you know what? If that's enough to make it work, great. It served you.
Beautiful. For sure. Absolutely. I love that. How does trauma impact, I know we've touched on this a little bit, impact the immune system, and what role does psychoneuroimmunology play in addressing the underlying emotional and psychological effects of trauma?
Trauma floods your nervous system with these neurotransmitters that then stimulates the immune response, which then in turn can impact your mood. So when you feel that flood, all of a sudden you're like, I don't like the way this feels. And so where psychoneuroimmunology comes in is for you to be able to identify when that happens and then integrate practices to help reduce it. And there's a perfect example. I know we were talking about brushing on like psychedelics and what they've been able to see in terms of vets suffering from treatment-resistant PTSD. And here you integrate this very interesting natural compound, back to that natural compound that can emulate a lot of what we're doing in our body, but it just progresses it forward. And I was working with this group that was doing these clinical trials, and someone would come in, yes, we're treating them for the treatment-resistant PTSD. However, they start doing the psychedelic treatment, and all of a sudden, their alcoholism goes away. Their overeating goes away. They develop hobbies. They're going to concerts. They have friends again. And it's so interesting to see that when you can go in and have a very focused initiative that these plant compounds or fungi, plant compounds are stimulating your mind, your body, your immune system to create an experience, an emotion, and that it's moving you through this process. It's changing you physiologically, and then therefore your perspective, and having a positive impact. And so it's been fun to see how that particular area of research is complementing what we're getting to know in PNI and how it may be able to help with some of these more challenging disorders. We're even seeing people with like eating disorders. Eating disorders are really hard in the psychology world to address. And psychedelics are having a positive impact and accelerating that end of life, taking people through end of life. And yeah, I'll be very curious to see how that area of research continues to evolve, because it also has stigmas associated with it. My dad is a vet, and I share this with him. And of course, it's near and dear to him. We've had a number of encounters with PTSD with him and his peers. He knows it's a real problem, but he's like, how do you get around the stigma of psychedelics as an intervention, because it's still perceived as a drug?
Yeah, it's being more, I'm hearing more and more about psychedelics and plant medicine. I had a woman on a while back. She was a 17-year vet, and she had PTSD, and she had depression and suicidal ideation and all of these things. And she was speaking at a conference, and she said someone approached her after the conference and told her what an impact her talk had on him. And he offered her a free past to a retreat where plant medicine was going to be implemented. And she said it changed her life completely. No more anxiety, no more depression, none of that shit. It's gone. She is now on a mission to educate the world about it and help. She is specifically, because she's a vet herself, she's working with vets and first responders to educate them and to bring this to them so that they know that this can help you in so many ways. I was speaking with a woman earlier this week. She's working in microdosing with mushrooms. I'm meeting and speaking with all of these women who are doing this work. So it is becoming more well known and more talked about, which is great because, as we know, conversation is the catalyst for change. That's how we start to change things, is talking about it. And this is right here what we're doing. And so I want to keep on this same path. And as you just said, you're exploring it yourself. Can you explain the relationship between PSIC, I'm using yours now, and plant-based products, particularly cannabis and psychedelics, and how they intersect in the context of holistic health and healing?
That is a whole podcast in itself. but I will say, to
Give
put
me
it
the
in a
abbreviated
nutshell,
version.
yeah. These plant compounds have a way of emulating and stimulating different kinds of nervous system, immune responses that complement our bodies in a holistic way. And there's still so much to learn here. Like cannabis very specifically, and the cannabinoid and the endocannabinoid system was not even a system. Like when I was pre-med, there was no endocannabinoid system. And of course, as this research developed, we started to learn about this. And this is this very interesting system that creates homeostasis. And so as we've been learning, like for cannabinoids specifically, it's almost like you want to feed the endocannabinoid system with these plant compounds. And there's this idea that you should have a certain percentage of, call it CBD, CBG, CBN, what have you, to help balance homeostasis. And we can get this not just from the cannabis plant. There's cannabinoids that are in echinacea and black pepper and arugula. It's just that we're not getting as much of these plant properties in our diet today. And of course, now we have the science, and thankfully, the cannabis industry has helped open up the possibilities of what we can be doing with these plants. And you'll just find that, again, when you don't have inflammation, you feel better. So it's not a surprise that if your endocannabinoid system is happier, all of a sudden pain isn't as a severe experience. All of a sudden wound care gets better. And it's been really interesting to see too how we can isolate some of these cannabinoids, and maybe this one is better for gut health. And then now we're learning that gut health is more connected to our mental health. And it's just science advancing itself with its various resources. But what's great is that plants were the start of modern medicine anyways, right? So we're just bringing back, like our mission at Green Goo is just bringing forward time-honored traditions. And we say that not just from a medical standpoint, but even from a holistic, social, cultural, community standpoint. And so it's just fun to see that some of these more disruptive, call it psychedelics, mushrooms, cannabis, are starting to bring that forward. And I predict like microdosing is just going to become a multivitamin one day. That's not going to have the stigma that it does today. And you're just going to take your vitamin just like you take whatever else you're taking, because it has such a positive impact even on people who are not looking for a macro dose for a more life-changing shift like PTSD, and more just everyday better health and wellness.
Okay, so I want to go down a rabbit hole here since we're talking about psychedelics and plant medicines and things like that. Right now, the pharmaceutical industry does not have a hold on that. They do not have a stake in it. It's a free market, basically. So do you see a point where the pharmaceutical industry jumps in and just takes over and obliterates what we're seeing right now? Because here in Canada, there are cannabis shops everywhere, every corner. They're all over the place. And so do you see that shifting? If and when, and first of all, I guess, do you see the pharmaceutical industry jumping in? I can't see them not. It's a huge moneymaker. So how do we navigate that piece of it? And where does that fit into things?
I mean, they're certainly trying. There's been plenty of attempts at patenting this and isolating that. So I don't think they're going to stop trying to find ways to put boundaries around it so that they can own that. But the good news is there's so much pushback in terms of avoiding it. There's a conference, the psychedelic conference that's in Denver. They just had their second one this year. And it was such an interesting place to be because it was a melting pot of indigenous wisdom, modern Western medicine, and people who are just advocating because they've had their own experiences, and then people who are producing these products and how different countries are managing it. Australia has just decriminalized it. We see in the US the various states that have decriminalized it and how they're navigating. You can go to downtown Denver right now. If you know the right people, you can go and you can purchase these things. And I think it'll be very interesting because cannabis moved not quickly in the market, but I think in general, it came to a place, and psychedelics are not quite, we all thought it was going to be treated just like cannabis. Okay, now that cannabis has a path, the psychedelics will just follow the same path. Like we've created that. And it's not doing that for a number of different reasons, because again, we're protecting its heritage. And then what does it mean to get into the hands of someone who didn't intend to have it? And so it'll be very interesting to see how this space evolves. But what we do know is there's a number of legal practices that can integrate it, especially in psychology. I mean, I think psychology will be first and foremost, or is first and foremost. And then we'll see how like the medical industry works its way in. So I don't know. We just know it's there and it's doing great work.
I really hope the pharmaceutical industry do not get their hands on it, because I think they'll fucking obliterate it and it'll just turn into a shit show. So I really hope it stays out of the hands. I don't see how it can, because the pharmaceutical industry is the pharmaceutical industry. And again, I know that's a whole other podcast episode, but I would hate to see them get their hands on it, because I think it would just change everything.
And people are trying to, these pharmaceuticals make synthetic versions of it. And
there you go.
You know, they haven't been successful. And then like breaking down, for example, like psilocybin and its active component. And what's really interesting is when you try to break it down, it becomes incredibly volatile. So I love that these plants are giving the medical industry a challenge. Yeah. They're like, yeah, we're going to make you work hard for it. Good job, plants.
Why is this component of your work so important to you personally?
Personally, my father is retired military, and I've seen the impact from his friends and his own experience with PTSD. And then for me, in being in the psychology industry, seeing some of these harder cases that have been difficult to provide solutions for, we're finding them. Again, back to eating disorders, PTSD, phantom limb. People who are suffering from phantom limb and they are just miserable. And then all of a sudden they do a macro dose of, call it an MDMA or a psychedelic intervention. And all of a sudden, like, they're good to go. And so there's something here. And I think there's the solution, which I really value, but I also learning why those solutions work so that we can leverage that information to help us in our wellness journey. It's just fascinating to me.
The women that I've spoke to who are doing this work and dealing in this, it is mind-boggling to me. It's incredible. I think it's amazing that we're able to help vets with these things and to help get them better, to get into a normal, for lack of a better term, space where they're not experiencing PTSD or phantom limbs or any of that stuff. But I think it's very important too, if you are going to dabble in this and look into, do your fucking research. Yeah. If you're going to go on these journeys, find a reputable place. The woman I was speaking with, it's a 17-year vet. She said the process to even qualify to go is very grueling. It's a long process. You have to be completely clean before a certain amount of weeks before you go take these journeys. Do your research, find a very reputable place, because I'm sure there are places out there that aren't reputable. And so doing your research on this stuff is very important.
100%. That is critical, because Yes, there are plenty of pseudo facilities and not clean solutions, meaning whatever the medicine that is that they're giving you, you want to make sure it's reputable. And that's the
Yeah.
unfortunate side of these emerging spaces is it's normal for that to happen, but it's not great. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you approach educating patients and the public about the potential risks and benefits, both sides of it, using cannabis and psychedelics for therapeutic purposes, and particularly in the light of shifting attitudes on regulations around it all?
I think you just have to go and start your own personal research journey and where you're getting that information. And the laws are different in every state, they're different in every country, and making sure that you know those laws, because you can be in possession even though it is a medicine and you're doing a medical intervention, and some states will not support that. And so it's incredibly important to have that. And I think it's up to the individual to shift their perspective, but start looking at that information and see how that may impact. And then I always welcome joining various groups. On LinkedIn, I have a number of people in this industry that I continue to communicate with because I want to see what's coming out, what emerging information is coming out, and then also just having more of that anecdotal experience and storytelling to be able to share with other people, because those results are just phenomenal.
They are, from what I've heard and the women I've spoken, they are the result. You can't argue with the results. They're incredible.
Yeah, and it's not
There's
placebo.
incredible breakthroughs. No, definitely not. Definitely not. So I want to shift gears a little bit and dive in now and speak about your company, Spry Life. Can you tell us all the things Spry Life? When was it founded? What the business is all about? All of these things.
Spry Life is a very new company. So my mom's sister and I, to back up, my sister's an herbalist and a midwife, and my mom's a self-taught computer programmer, website developer. Being a wife of a military partner, she had to learn to reinvent her career everywhere we went. So she was one of the early adopters of computers and self-taught coding, which was pretty cool. And when we created Green Goo, which is plant-based first aid and personal care products, and the goal in doing this was that we were living a very healthy lifestyle, very mindful of sustainability. But when you opened up our first aid cabinet, we made all the exceptions. One-time use, no sustainability, and chemicals, because we thought that's just what had to happen. And as my sister was going through herb school and practicing making topical therapeutics from plants and recognizing there's these plant profiles and how you process them is what gives you the results, all of a sudden we started making topical antiseptics, topical analgesics, hydrocortisone alternatives, and we started sharing them at the farmer's market. And it was just super interesting that everyone, we had the longest line, and everyone's telling us their stories about how their eczema is gone and their chronic pain from various injuries that they've had. And so what was interesting is I started looking at the OTC space more specifically, and I found exactly the same result that we were experiencing, which is the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told products like Neosporin, hydrocortisone, calamine were the only products that could get the job done. And then even more interesting was the conventional consumer was like, I don't care what the ingredients are. I have a chronic skin condition and nothing over the counter works, and I just want something that works better. Put whatever you want in it. And so we thought, let's make a product that is superior in efficacy first. And then, by the way, it's plant-based and it's sustainable packaging. So Green Goo was born. We built it. We sold it. And then we bought it back. So Spry Life is the new company where Green Goo, which has been around for 15 plus years, and we've only had it back for about a year. So it's really exciting for us to have Green Goo back and doing what our mission was, which is spread goodness. And our vision is bringing forward time-honored traditions. And we've been able to protect this process. So what I mean by that is we don't make pre-made extract, or we don't bring in pre-made extracts. We still bring the plants to our manufacturing facility where we take them through this extraction process, yield high amounts of the medicinal properties, and then these custom oils go in these products. So these unique oils are rich in its botanical profile. So that botanical compound we were talking about, and then that entourage effect of working with all of these other plants to create the results that we do. And that's why it works.
Amazing. So how many products do you have in your product line for Green Goo
Don't know.
right now?
Lots. My sister and I love developing products.
What are some of the major ones?
Yeah.
So
our number one selling product is called Skin Repair. And this started out as like a burn and scar Moderna alternative. Rich in aloe, helichrysum, rose oil. What it has evolved into is it is phenomenal for eczema and anti-aging, cancer patients going through chemo and radiation, especially. And then it's been really interesting too, like marathon runners and folks that their skin is this overexposed outdoors, and it's very soothing, very calming. But honestly, it's the most amazing anti-aging. Like I need like the most basic routine, and all you got to do is use this product and you're good to go. And then we have our first aid product, which is the Neosporin alternative. And what we did is instead of it just being a topical antiseptic, it is your first aid on the go. So it's your first aid kit. So it is for cuts and scrapes, but then bug bites and bee stings and poison ivy and cold sores. So it's like your Swiss Army knife, and you can take it with you everywhere you go, and it's portable. And you don't have to worry about one-time use, and you don't have neomycin in it, where a lot of people are allergic to it. And you'll find that you'll start prescribing. Like someone gets hurt, and you're like, oh, I got Green Goo. Here you go. You can give it to kids. You can give it to dogs. It's great.
Amazing. That is incredible. I love that. And so where do you see, or where do you hope Green Goo goes in the next 5 years, say?
What
are your goals?
Is to inform the customer that you do not need to have these chemical-laden historical products that we've been told from the Industrial Revolution that we need, and instead shift over to Green Goo, replace it, and live. And then with that, opening up your world to a wellness journey. Because in these products, we also are very mindful of the smell and the mind-body experience. And it's so funny. I'll tell people, like, just butter up every Sunday, get out of the shower, whether you want to use the pain relief or you want to use the repair, put it on shoulders down, put your bathrobe on, let it soak up, do a couple chores, read a book, whatever, and then get dressed, go about your day. You will feel different. And I had someone the other day, she was so great. She emailed and was like, I played 4 hours of pickleball, and then I went in the hot tub, then I put on the pain relief from shoulders down, and I got the best night's sleep and I feel amazing. And she was like, it's all because I took that salve after a really hard day, integrated that anti-inflammatory component, which then impacts your mood, impacts your immune response. And then you're just like, wow, I just feel better. And oh, by the way, your skin also looks really good too.
We will definitely put the link in the show notes to check out the website and all the products that you guys have when the episode is released. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful?
People will tell me that my resilience, and I was once described as those blow up holiday decorations you put in your front yard and they fall over and they come back up. They were like, that's you, Jody. Yeah. You're so resilient. And every problem you turn into an opportunity, and you can distill it down into actionable items that move something forward. Thank you, Mom and Dad. One, having my dad who's been military logistics and Mom with her tenacity and her perseverance. Marry those two and able to have that coping mechanism in terms of building the company. And I would say my definition of success has shifted. So it was wonderful to have that complement of resilience and fortitude and tenacity, but then also defining success differently, as resilience is less about, it's great to have that grit and keep going, but really having the discipline to stop and then continuing to invest in myself so that I can show up as my best version of myself for my team, for my family, and for myself.
I love that. So there's your definition of success. Beautiful. I was just about to ask you what your definition is. So there we go. You just did it. What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before you learned it? What was your life like after you learned it?
I think it goes back to, you can't outperform burnout. And so it goes back to being present and how I just was always, when my daughter shared that story about being really focused on her exam. And I was just really, I was applauding her for that, because it took me so many years to burn out, keep going, not being in the present, being in the future, and just like cranking at it. And instead coming back and saying, no, I just need to be really focused in this moment, right here with you right now, and how it is going to serve me and others. And so my whole world has shifted since I've changed that mindset. I'm healthier, I'm happier, and I'm way more productive, which is super interesting, because before I felt like if I invested in myself, that it was a luxury and that I don't have time for that. I need to just keep output. And then recognizing that the output is not as good as it could be if I just backed up into this moment. And so it was a big shift for me.
Beautiful. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Presence.
I see a common thread here, Jody, through the whole interview.
Being fully present.
Okay. We're going to jump into a little rapid fire section here. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3 word answer type thing. How would you describe yourself in one word?
Authentic.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
How I showed up for people and myself.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Lead with love.
What is the one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
My love for
What is your favorite self-care practice?
presence. And I'll take presence. How do you get present? So my 2 favorite presence exercises are cold plunging. I love to cold plunge. That's been a whole journey in itself. I live next to a river, and just the breathing that you have to do, and you feel the burn and moving through it, what you know you're going to be fine, even though it hurts. And sometimes it just hurts. Some days are better than others, but it never gets better. It never does. You literally move through it. And the strangest thing is you crave it. And then I love to hike. I love to walk and just get my body moving, but moving and being still. I used to just be like, okay, I'm going to keep moving, and I'm going to listen to this podcast, or I'm going to listen to this book, and I'm going to digest as much information. And instead I'm moving, but I'm like listening to the birds. I'm watching the clouds move. I'm feeling my feet hit the ground and like really dropping into that movement.
Love it. What is one word that defines the woman you are becoming?
Present. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, that concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I created a bonus question for you. If other people could use 3 words to describe you, what would you want those 3 words to be?
What I would want them to be. Yeah. This is my own projection, but I think I'd want them 3 words. So authentic, so they know I'm authentically there for them. I'll use the word resilient loosely, because I'm going to use that in the context that I have their back, and they know that I'm going to put that over my shoulder, and I'm going to carry them through some really tough times or some great times, but that they have that like love, and they have that protection and loyalty, that I'm there with them through the thick and the thin, and even on the hard days when even not our best self shows up.
Beautiful. What is one lesson that your career has taught you that you think everybody should learn at some point in their life?
One lesson. You have everything you need inside you right now. You have it.
That's a powerful one. And it's the truth, 100%. Everything. Because we are the foundation for everything. We start here. It all starts here within us.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What would you say is one of your biggest life lessons or teachable moments, instead of using the word failure? And what did you learn from it?
I think there's 2 things, and I wouldn't call them failures. I would actually say like the most pronounced, like the most impactful, life-changing experiences for me that shifted would be 1, birthing my daughter, and the other was buying back the company. Birthing my daughter because my sister's a midwife, and somehow she talked me into having a home birth with no medical intervention, which I was not opposed to an epidural. I didn't have any feelings on whether that was going to be good or bad, but she did. And so she was like, "Are you up for it?" I'm like, "Sure, what the heck? Let's give this thing
Why not?
Why not?" And I took like some meditation classes and some visualization, and I thought, okay, maybe this will help, maybe it won't. But I really wanted to take the challenge and see if I could really get in touch with my body in the way that like you would dream of a birth being. Is that really humanly possible? And you can't just go into the birth and assume that you could just wing it then. So I spent 9 months preparing for that, whether it was eating really well, doing the shaman, sleeping, doing the meditation, doing the yoga, like really like I'm getting ready to go into a marathon. I'll never forget, like 6 hours into it, I'm like, okay, we're done. Take me in. We're done. And I'm like, no more. Yeah. And they're like, it's too late. There's no turning
No
back.
turning back.
I'm like, you can get an ambulance here. They're like, no, like you're in this now. There's nothing going wrong.
We are at the PNR.
Yeah. This is now just mindset, Jody. Everything's going. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. F-bombing, like, really? Like, somebody have a Xanax? I don't know. What do we do here? There's gotta be another solution. And they were like, no. And so I was like, okay, you have all of this that you need right here. You've done it. You've led up to this. You've got this. And I sat there and I just dropped in for what felt like 2 minutes. I think it was about 30 minutes. And then I looked at them and I said, okay, we're going to have this baby. They're like, yes, we are. And I said, and right now. And they're like, no, we're not. Like, how do we tell this person that might be 15 more hours? And I was like, no, we are having this baby right now. And then I did. And they were like, is this really happening? And I was like, but I had spent that 30 minutes like getting in touch with all of that. And it really reminded me of what is possible. So that was the shift. And then I brought that forward in selling when we sold the company and had to buy it back. And it was so tough and like we're broke and it's fight or flight. And we have felt like we've lost our sense of purpose and was like, I was like, you have everything that you need. Bring all of that forward. Get present and you will figure out the next move. You don't know what's going to happen. It may not work out. But right now, you are just going to sit in this moment, and then you're going to make the next decision. And then you're going to sit in this moment, and then you're going to make the next decision. And it was life-changing.
Love it.
It was absolutely life-changing. And those 2 moments for me were really pivotal.
Thank you for sharing those. Beautiful. What is your why?
My why leans into, I feel like everything that has happened for me is a purpose for me to share with the world. And so if I can enhance, whether it's from my education, my trials and my tribulations, the products that we make, if I can enhance people's lives so they can open to and untap their full potential to live a full life and have that vibration, that ripple effect happen, then I've done good while I'm here.
Yeah. We're all here. That's part of why we're all here, is to be in and of service to one another. So I love it. That is beautiful. If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
I was going to say, I was thinking about this. What's the bravest thing you've ever done? But I think we've covered it, which was truly drinking my sister's Kool-Aid and having that home birth.
Kudos to you for drinking the Kool-Aid. I love it.
We live in this little tiny town. And when I tell kids, like, we'll drive by the house and I'm like, that's where my daughter was born. When Kira has her friend, she's like, Mom, can we please stop telling that story? And they're like, no one's actually born in this town because there's no hospital in this town. Like, she might be the only one, the only true person born here.
Yes, exactly. That's a shingle she can hang for sure. If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
This is tough, but I'm going to lean into, because there's so many, Nina Simone. So Nina Simone, activist, musician. And what I love about her is that she was, one, unapologetic She was creative. She used her platform as not only a place to entertain, but also a place to change the world. And in a time where, one, she was a woman, and she was a Black woman and an entertainer, and in a predominantly male industry. And I give her accolades, along with what a brave, fierce force.
Beautiful voice, too.
Beautiful voice. Love her
Beautiful
music.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, that you have everything you need. And I think humans, we're always looking for a reason to say scarcity. I don't have this. I don't have this. And what a different perspective it would be if you're like, I have it all already.
It's those little, again, like we said, it's those little tiny tweaks. I read a book, and I'm listening to it for the second time now, A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And this is exactly some of the stuff that he taught, quantum physics and all these things, but specifically around, we already have, every one of us has everything that we need, or everything that we could ever want. It's already there. It's just a matter of stepping into it and realizing it and owning it. Abundance is our birthright. There is more than enough on this planet to go around for everybody. I don't care if we're talking about careers, job, whatever it is, there is more than enough to go around. You never have to worry about not being or not having enough. When we have to be, again, tapping into the mindfulness piece, we have to be aware of our thoughts, because our thoughts produce what we think. It comes to fruition. We have to be aware of the words we use. What we speak comes to fruition. Be mindful of the words you use. Be mindful of the thoughts you have. Don't use the words I want. Don't use the words I need, because that implies lack, that you don't have that thing. You already do. It's already there. You just haven't stepped into it and owned it.
Back to Star Wars, Anakin, be mindful of your thoughts.
Yes, there we go.
So true.
Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your tribe, your corner of the world, your people, Jody, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. With love, take bold action, and the journey is shaping you for your purpose.
I love that. Jody, thank you so much for such an incredibly enlightening, insightful, beautiful, and inspirational conversation. I've enjoyed every minute of our time together, our conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and of course, the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you're doing, the people you're helping. It is absolutely inspiring. I am honored to have had the opportunity to sit and share in your story and your journey. I am honored to call you a friend and have you as a member of the Empowerography community. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Jodi Scott. She is the founder of Spry Life / Green Goo. Yes?
You got it. Nailed it.
She has a master's degree in health psychology and specializes in the field of, I'm going to try this one last time, psychoneuroimmunology. Psychoneuroimmunology. There we go. Thank you, Jody. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you. You too, Brad. Such a treat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at viseuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at viseuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast.